What's going on, guys? It's Arrow. Welcome back to the channel. It is day 3 roughly. I'm just waking up. I'm going to recap the first 2 days in the game, tell you about how the build did, anything that I might have changed, and the things that you absolutely need to know to make this build feel good. And at the end, I'm going to go over the ideal mercenary setup for your build. So let's jump in. So on day 2, I took down the final 2 Void Stones, killing both Uber Elder and the Maven. I think I only have around 90 points on the Atlas out of 115, but I do have all of my favorited slots outside of the Feared. Basically taking down every non-Uber Pinnacle boss and the relevant invitations. The build is feeling very good, and I have mostly followed the guide.
Oh, it's crazy. When you follow the build guide, like, it works really well.
However, I feel like there may be some things that people are struggling with that I may not have explained well enough, or just that are a little bit more difficult to understand. So thing number 1, the biggest and most important tip, we need to talk about Trinity. Sounds like Trinity's been a problem for a lot of people, unfortunately. And the truth is, I just don't think folks understand it. So for starters, Trinity does not need all 3 damage types. You just need to do 2 alternating damage types in order to main all three elements of resonance. When you do a hit that is the highest fire, you will get cold and lightning resonance. When you do the highest hit as cold, you will get fire and lightning resonance. So as long as you're alternating, you're going to have 50 resonance of all types at all times. It's important to note that your overlap does not have to be that big in order to keep up Trinity, because we hit so many times per second. If you cast 5 times and get 3 overlaps, that's 15 hits per second. That means a very small overlap will likely provide you with at least 1 or 2 of those hits coming through as fire. So you just need to make sure that you have enough fire damage that it's happening every once in a while. So how do we do that? The first thing is getting fire exposure. You can get it on your gloves, or just buy a pair of gloves and throw them on your Merc. That gives your Merc fire exposure. This is particularly helpful if you have a Merc that hits very often. Fire exposure is going to increase the amount of fire damage you're doing without increasing the amount of cold damage you're doing. Number 2, stop using cold exposure or frost bomb. If you have cold exposure on the tree or frost bomb, that's probably messing up your Trinity. Now you can add this back in later once you have enough fire damage, but if you're currently breaking your Trinity, you should fix it. Number 3, on the way to Snowforged, there is a small travel node that can be cold damage or fire. Cold damage is a little bit more damage for the build, but the fire damage is going to not increase your cold, but only increase your fire. That's going to swing Trinity in your favor, so you're more likely to get max fire hits. Number 4, make sure that you are invested in chill. There are nodes on the tree that are super helpful and that are vital to the build, and you don't want to invest in chill just for your heat shiver. You also get less damage taken if you're max chilling enemies. So you should always have max chills no matter what. And once you get there, then you can drop some of that chill investment. But until then, invest in your chills. So that's Trinity. Number 2, I want to talk about survivability. Recovery is incredibly important. The Shaper's Seed is a 1C unique that you can put on at level 16. That means you can basically give it to your mercenary right away as soon as the game starts. So get one of these, make sure your Merc is always wearing it, because that is going to give you 4% life regen. It's going to give 4% life regen to your golems and 4% to your mercenary. It's also going to give you a huge amount of increased mana regen. That, in combination with your lightning golem, is going to basically solve all of your mana issues that you could ever have. Second, Sorrow of the Divine is a really nice flask if you have a big ES pool. This will allow you to, 1, have more uptime of consecrated ground, but 2, recover your ES with your life flask. It basically doubles the effectiveness of a life flask, and because it also gives damage in consecrated ground, it's a really nice flask to use early. I'm still using it, even with all 4 of my Void Stones down. Make sure you give it a try. Speaking of a big ES pool, it is incredibly easy to get a lot of energy shield onto the build using only a chest. The body armor slot has a capacity of over 1,000 flat energy shield, and you should be making use of it. Use your other slots to get evasion, which we'll get into, and make sure that chest slot has a huge amount of ES. I'd like to recommend a necrotic armor in the chest, but I simply can't because it costs too much dexterity. So how do you make a chest piece? It is super simple. Go and buy a 6-link chest piece, as high as you can afford. The better the chest piece, the more ES you're going to get. If you've got 30C, you can go get like a Vol Regalia or maybe an Arcane Vestment. And if you've got a couple Divines to spend, you can go up and get a Twilight Regalia, which is what I'm currently using. You take that, you buy some dense fossils, and you use somewhere between 10 and 20 dense fossils, and you have yourself an endgame chest. It is so easy to make a good chest like this because it blocks life modifiers when you use a dense fossil, and there's just not that many prefixes that you can get on an ES chest, so that you can then combine that with the 15% increased life mastery on the tree because you don't have any life modifiers on your chest. Next, you want to make sure that you have evasion on your other gear. You use this evasion because a mercenary with grace is your highest priority. Adding in this layer of avoidance takes your survivability to the next level. It was always the plan to use a grace merc, and I regularly have people coming into my channel and saying, what kind of merc should I use? It's always grace. Until the late endgame, when you switch to something like an Aegis setup, you need to use grace to have a big avoidance layer for incoming attack hits. Otherwise, you're going to be hit constantly. Early on in the campaign, you can use a vitality, determination, enduring cry sort of merc, and that is incredibly powerful. But later on, I found the grace merc a lot better because you can get something like haste with it or hatred, and I just enjoyed that combo better. An item to look at in the endgame is the accumulator wand. This gives you charges per second, and when combined with the mastery for increased charge duration, you basically have full uptime of all of your charges. Because we don't normally get frenzy charges, this is pretty powerful. Now, they're not cheap to get, but you can buy a base and do some crafting on it yourself, so give that a look. Lastly, early on, you can use a barracks grip for leech. This ring is not very good, but it has a lot of the stuff we need. It's got a little bit of flat damage, some life, some leech, some resistances, and even some cold damage. So throw on the barracks until you can get that glove implicit. That can be pretty challenging to get sometimes, and you should be good to go. Next, I want to talk about the Stone Golem of Safeguarding. This is a melee mitigation tool, and I use this in the end game. I didn't include it as the starting golem. I instead included an ice golem because one, the ice golem gives you a bunch of crit, and crit is hard to acquire early. And two, I thought this was going to be incredibly expensive, but it turns out there's not that many red gems that are transfigured, and the number one gem this league that people are looking for is Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. So there's a lot of these on the market. They basically were 1C on day one, and I was able to acquire one, and I hadn't put it in the build for a long time, and it caused a lot of questions. I just wanted the damage. But as soon as you feel like you need some more mitigation, particularly from melee hits, a Stone Golem of Safeguarding is a great way to do that. So lastly, let's jump in game and talk about the Merc. So here we have level 91 Valar more golems. Let's go talk about my mercenary that I am using right now. This is not a completed mercenary. I still have a bunch of gearing that I'm going to be doing on stream today, twitch.tv/AER0__. But this one has haste and grace. Haste and grace are incredibly powerful. We're getting more speed, which is really important for me because I'm just trying to get through maps as quickly as possible. And then also grace, which is going to boost our evasion. Now, in the hideout without the grace on, we have 2,000 evasion. With our flask, we're at 5,600. And then in zones where we actually have grace, I think it's somewhere around 11 or 12,000, which feels really, really nice. The haste is great as well. I'd probably prefer hatred here, so I could do some hatred aura scaling on this character because I really don't think we need to move much faster than we already do. And then we could take hatred off the build and put something like purity of elements in. Sorry, I'm poor. I have to go make this trade. So let's talk about the few items that are on here that are important. The Shaper Seed, eventually I'm going to get this probably with a corruption for +1 curse, and then we're going to be able to add like elemental weakness into this setup. We are using Legacy of Fury, and this gives us Scorch and Scorch effect. We don't have a lot of ways to lower enemy resistances on the current version of the character, and that is intentional. It's because we're going to use Legacy of Fury to do a lot of that for us. This is a huge amount of damage. It's fairly cheap at this point, and because these mercs don't die and lose their gear, as soon as you can afford a pair of these, you should get it. The next thing we're using is Calm's Binding. Unfortunately, this went up in price because I think Fubgun made a video about it, so they're a little bit more expensive than they were. I think I paid 8C for mine, and they're somewhere around 50, but they are definitely worth it. When stacking additively with our Shaper of Winter, we're getting 65% of Fizz converted to fire. This feels really nice. In the glove slot, we are using Unnerve, and that it currently has Maim on there, but I actually want to change this over to Fire Exposure. I basically just went on the trade website and I bought a pair of gloves that had Unnerve as well as some useful mods like Life and Res, because I do want to make sure this character is res capped, this mercenary. I have been using this merc for quite a bit, and they have not died a single time. They're a dex character, and usually dex characters are considered pretty squishy, but 4,000 life, capped res outside of fire. So you can look at these numbers, 0 chaos res, fire res at 41, and think they probably seem pretty squishy, but I took Tarika the Practice into all of the invitations, into the Maven, into the Shaper, into Uber Elder, and she didn't die in any of those fights. I actually never even saw her take any damage. So I'm not sure how these things scale, but they definitely don't scale the way they say that they do. I do believe that there is some hidden modifiers here, both to damage and defense, like a less damage taken taken sort of situation because she really just doesn't take damage at all. So more things coming here on the Merc, but this is what I'm using right now. So if you want to see my current character, I'm not going to go through it all today. I just wanted to make a tips and tricks video that are going to help people with the problems they're having with the build. I'll include my planner down below. That is the most recent variant of the build, and you can see how I've geared and what items I'm using. And if you have any questions, stop by my Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0___. I'll be live for the rest of the day and every single day for a while. So thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care.